Experiencing abuse in a relationship is a way of slowly removing you from the relationship. Many survivors lose a strong sense of self. And when you're dating, you want to be sure to maintain your personhood, your identity, and don't just come in and adopt their identity. That would be really codependent, where you let them kind of take over and you start spending all your time with that person's friends and their interests. And, it's fun to explore new friends and new interests, but maintain that personhood and know that you have the responsibility to be your best advocate. Okay, so let's dive in today's topic. Dating after abuse is a really big topic. There's so much to say, and there's so many subtopics around dating after abuse. I won't nearly cover it in its entirety, but hopefully you can glean some helpful tips and new ideas to help you think about dating after abuse in a fresh and new way. Dating can be nerve-wracking. It's often really uncomfortable, and it's complicated for anyone. Even if you're not coming out of an abusive relationship. Some of you may already be dating, and some of you may be considering dating, and others may be far from the idea of dating or even thinking you will never date again. But you're here because you find it an interesting topic. Wherever you find yourself on this journey, I'm just so glad that you're here and open to the idea that there is a very real possibility you will date again. And you can have a healthy relationship when you do, if you know what to look for, if you've worked through your part in the dynamics of the abusive relationship. I'm not saying it's your fault. It's not. It's never the victim's fault. But we have an internal outlook on ourselves that allows us to participate in the dynamics. And so there's work that needs to be done there. So when dating after abuse, the goal is to date from a place of healthiness and wholeness. Keep your focus on healing, as dating is another step in the healing process that's to be done towards the end of the healing process. And it's time to, when you start dating, that's time to put all that you've learned and all the ways that you've grown into a new practice. Very different from your last relationship. There's no right time or timeline I can give you for when to start dating, but being properly equipped to date again will depend on whether or not you have invested significant time unpacking the faulty beliefs that held you hostage or caused you confusion in your prior abusive relationship. Now, usually I speak about the faulty beliefs of an abuser, their faulty thinking, their faulty thinking patterns that result in toxic behaviors. But as victims, and I was one once, I like to consider myself a thriver now, but I remember my faulty beliefs were self-doubt, and I believed things like I was unlovable or intrinsically flawed. And those kinds of internal beliefs they're unconscious. They're not always something that you really realize about yourself. They will cause you to choose a destructive partner. And if you haven't worked through that, you will choose an abusive relationship again. In your emotional work, post an abusive relationship, it should be a goal to progress to a place of really loving yourself and becoming confident about what you believe in terms of how interpersonal relationships should operate. If you missed our workshop on self-love deficit disorder and self-love abundance, please go to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, where you will hear a deeper message describing the steps that you really need to take to achieve this goal. Excuse me. Once you have done the deep work begin dating when and if it feels good and comfortable for you. It helps to go into dating with the mindset that you are not trying to find your life partner or spouse, because chances are you will only marry one person out of all the people you date. Now, I think it's great, to date with a purpose. You want to qualify that person to be an appropriate fit for you. But I'm talking about using it as an opportunity to date varying kinds of people, including people who aren't typically your type, and practice all that you've learned about a healthy sense of self-worth and wholeness. It's kind of like going to Baskin Robbins and choosing different ice creams to decide which ones you really like. Because if you stay narrowly focused, you're going to miss the opportunity to really explore how different personalities, how you respond to different personalities, and recognizing some of the unhealthy signs that different people present to you. It helps to consider dating as a process in which you are getting to a place where you can see emotional health in them, and to be a good friend to you and someone that you want to be a good friend to as well. That takes the pressure off, rather than this is like your next life partner. Plus, you probably wouldn't keep friends with people who you are unsure about, right? So it's a good practice even with your friendships to choose people who are going to be encouraging, compassionate, never condemning, and supportive in your life. And sometimes we have to weed out friends, weed out those toxic people that make us feel uncomfortable or who don't respect our boundaries. And so these signs that I'm giving you today are applicable to your friendships as well. The reality is nobody is perfect. There will be things that you don't like. For example, maybe the person you're dating is messy and disorganized, or maybe they put the toilet paper in a different direction than you prefer. The beauty is you get to decide what things you can and cannot tolerate, or that you can and cannot live without. Also, those two things I just mentioned are not red flags. Those are just preferences. I just want to clarify that. Obviously, the way you hang your toilet paper is not determinant of a red flag or not. Okay, so a question I'd like to pose to you, and I would love to have your responses, is that before I dive into the red flags and the green lights, I'd like to ask if you are comfortable. I don't want to pressure you, but it's so great when you comment, to please share with us in the chat where you are in your healing. Have you done the work? Are you healed? Do you feel confident that you would never choose an abusive person again? Are you dating? Are you considering dating? Does the thought of dating feel far off from you? I'd just like to know where you are in that process. So I'll give a minute for the comments to come in.
We have a couple people considering dating.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a question here already. Oh, here they are. They're really popping in. This is awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. The chat just keeps hopping, which is, we always are encouraged by that. So we love this participation. I'm just going to read through them, and then if we pause for the question now or save it, I'll
Okay.
as we go along here. It says, I have done the work. I feel like I'm in a good place, still working through mediation with my ex. So I'm not doing that or anything until that is final.
That's a really good position to take, because that's going to take up a lot of your energy. It's going to be stressful. It's really requires your focus. So that's a good decision.
Yes. We have a few people here who are not divorced yet. We have someone who's divorced last year after 35 years. They're on a dating app. Have gone on a couple of first dates. Someone who has started dating and in an exclusive relationship. Currently dating. Let's see. I feel like I'm halfway healing. I'm currently starting therapy again, reading self-help books, and trying to love myself by spending more time with myself.
That's great. Can I recommend a book? I've done this before, but if you're still in your healing journey, I just love the book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, because it really unpacks very specifically the kind of healing that you need to be focusing on internally for yourself to get to that place of loving yourself and really feeling that you have clarity about everything that happened, your part in how you viewed yourself, how that impacted your decisions to stay in that relationship. So I just really encourage you to get that book. It's by Ross Rosenberg. Go on, Jill.
Yeah, I want to read these to you so you know who's here, because this is amazing. We have like 15 comments here, so I'm just going to go through them. And Nanette, if you want me to pause,
Okay.
let me know. It says, still separated, not officially divorced, and I'm not allowing myself to think about dating. I'm afraid to make the same mistake again. Really common.
Good for you.
I was here today doing this workshop.
Yeah.
Nearly healed, been without a relationship for years, waiting until I've successfully healed, because you are right, the healing must come first.
Yes.
2.5 years post-divorce, I just met a man I feel a great connection with. I met him randomly. I was not even looking. Another person here just focused on me and the kids. And then another one, 2 years divorced, done lots of work for healing. Really not ready or interested in dating, but I know that may change. Very good. Have not dated in 14 years. Now I met someone that is a good possibility and I had given up on looking. So that's neat.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Like you said, Annette, there's no timeline. Everybody's really
Yeah.
in different places, and that's the beauty of this. Haven't told my husband yet that I'd like to divorce. I'm gathering information as I know I want to date post-divorce, and I'm trying to learn more about codependency and figure out what is needed for healing and bring myself and my kids into a healthy new chapter.
I'm so proud of you for saying that, because codependency, I don't really like that definition or that term, sorry. But that's what the human magnet syndrome unpacks. He calls it self-love deficit disorder. And in the book, he gets you towards the end and shows you the steps that you need to take to get to self-love abundance. And self-love abundance is when you really understand yourself. You really can see the red flags so easily, and you can see the green lights, and you can see your tendencies. It's just like eye-opening. So that if you're working on codependency, that book would be fantastic for you.
Yes, and I will place that in the chat. I see a couple of people asking. I'll put information in the chat. And then we have, let me keep going. We have some more here, Annette. Somebody who's been on 2 dates and realized they're not ready, still working on themselves, and a year out from the breakup, divorced after 20 years. Been single for a couple of months and started dating last month. And someone here is healing, trying not to be scared of starting to date again after 15 years of marriage, divorced last September. I feel healed and I'm aware of red flags. Oops, sorry, I just jumped because they're still coming. I feel healed and I'm aware of red flags. I'm ready to start dating again, as I've gained invaluable insight through you all at the Mend Project.
Oh, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. I want to just say one thing before I even start this talk, and I want to hear the rest of the comments, but as it's fresh in my mind, for me, I chose 3 abusive husbands. And I'm not proud of it, but I didn't heal. I didn't even know that it was abuse the first time, even though looking back, it was so abusive. My second husband was very abusive, but the second husband wasn't at all like the first husband. And the third husband wasn't at all like either one of them. So it's not necessarily going to be the same red flags that you experienced. They can look very different. So hopefully you'll glean that from this talk today.
That's so good. And Annette, thank you for sharing that personal piece of your story. I'm sure it's a blessing for everyone here. You really understand the challenges of all of this.
And how important it is to do the work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
What was the question that we had?
The one that I just read that prompted that?
Oh, was that the question?
Oh, no. Oh, the question from the start.
Yeah.
Um, I am going to go back to that. We still have, we have like just 5 left. And so let me,
Okay, go ahead, finish that.
yeah, I'll go ahead and finish these and I'll ask you the question. Somebody who said, I married 3 abusive husbands too.
Mm,
That can happen.
thank you. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, that's cute. I just started dating, but my anxiety is very high. I am very nervous about it. Very common. I
That
feel
might be a sign that it's time to take a pause. Listen to your body, because you should. I mean, there's always the jitters when you're first dating somebody, but true anxiety, that should be resolved for your own well-being. Because when we're anxious and we have experienced trauma, anxiety actually manifests in the form of trauma. So for a traumatized victim who has had PTSD or still has signs of PTSD or any forms of trauma, anxiety is trauma. So you're not ready yet. It's traumatizing. It's stirring up traumatic feelings in you that need to be resolved.
Mm, so good, so good. And
So
there is
take good
another,
care of yourself. Yeah, listen to your body.
absolutely. And this next comment says, I am being reactive, I think. And so that just goes along even with what you're saying. It's we really have to pay attention. And then this person did say, I'm looking for someone who's not tall or handsome or funny or charming, like my spouse of 35 years was. LOL. This person said. So yeah, sometimes we'll look at opposite traits, but like Annette said, do that deep work so you can really get to know on the inside and even
Yeah.
yourself, care well for yourself. Um, let's see. I just started dating. My anxiety is high. I feel I am in a very, actually, this is the next comment. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's hard. I don't delineate. The next comment says, I feel I am in a very healthy, self-compassionate space and I am very happy. That's
Good
beautiful.
for you. That makes me so happy.
Yes. So here's the question. I'm going to go back and um, read it. When there's been a long history of sexual coercion, any ideas about how to approach men and not being afraid of being used sexually again?
Well, just thinking of this spontaneously, if I could put more thought into it, I might have a better answer. But I think that it is healthy to let some time pass before you get sexually involved, to really see how this person responds to you. Now, they're all going to put their best foot forward in the beginning. So you need to be really discerning. But if they're pressuring you, they're not respecting you. Somebody who is just interested in sex won't wait. And somebody who is really interested in you is going to respect you and value you and just want to be with you for who you are. And then sex is a bonus to come later. So I wouldn't tolerate any pressure in that area. I would just set the boundary and say, I'm not, I don't date in that style where you have sex early. I really want to get to know who I'm spending my time with. I want to know that they're a right fit for me. Some people can have sex with partners and even multiple partners, and it doesn't affect them emotionally. But for many women, once they've been intimate, they feel a deeper emotional connection. And so I want you to guard against that. And I want you to guard against feeling exploited or taken advantage of. You get to determine. It's up to you to let the other person know what you will and will not accept. You need to be your best advocate in that way. That's just what comes to mind spontaneously for me.
Really good, really helpful. There's one more question here I'm going to ask, and anything that comes after that we'll save for the end so we can
Okay.
dive right in. This last question says, how do you start dating when dreams of your abusive ex still continue to happen on a daily basis? I feel
Mm.
these dreams are preventing me from moving forward into my healing completely.
Well, dreams like that are a form of flashback. So you're still in a trauma state and you're not ready. And I'm glad that you recognize that that might be. Jill, I don't know how to turn off these beeps that are interfering. I don't know if you can all hear them, but I apologize. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to have to find out for our next workshop.
Yes, we will.
Okay. But oh, shoot, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again? I'm so sorry, everyone.
That's okay. The question is about dreams and
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. So for many trauma victims, if not all trauma victims, they have these dreams or like flashbacks. I remember, oh gosh, one of my ex-husbands was like, he was a white collar criminal in having to do with financial issues and businesses. And I just had these dreams constantly that the IRS was going to come pounding on our door, or the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, was going to come and arrest him or me, or, you know, I didn't know anything about his businesses, but when they started contacting us, it was so triggering and scary. And I had those dreams for a long time, not to mention the other things that he did that were just so confusing and abusive. But you need to get to a place where, like, that's full-blown trauma. You need to get to a place where you're healed and you don't, and the space, the intervals between the times that you have those dreams is spread out more. Like right now, you might be having them every night or every third night or whatever. You want to get to a place where it's like every 6 months you have a dream like that. And then, you know, you're really ready. You're still too traumatized to even think about that right now. You have a lot of healing to do. So I respect you for raising that. And I would listen to your body, respect that you're traumatized, take care of yourself, because only you can do that work, care for yourself well. Yeah, so I would definitely wait. So, okay, thank you so much for all those fabulous comments and questions. It's, as you can see, it just really puts things into context and helps us feel like we're in a safe environment. We're not alone. There are people like us at different stages, and here we are together on this journey. So now I want to move forward. What is considered to be a red flag in a dating relationship? I'm sure you've heard this concept of red flags before. It's not new, but maybe I'll shed a new light on this. A red flag is basically a warning signal, like a red light you come to where you need to press the brakes and come to a stop. You can identify a red flag when you notice a potentially harmful and or damaging behavior or behaviors, and they can be very subtle. And so I want you to think of yourself as really having your radar on at all times, so that you don't get intoxicated by that early infatuation that you feel, but that you're able to really look objectively, almost like you step outside the relationship and you look down on it, and you allow yourself to consider red flags, because sometimes we emotionally get swept up in the good feelings and then we just kind of diminish the red flags. I want you to really adopt a mindset that you're eager to find the red flags. And if they don't come, then great. But if they do, you're accepting the fact that you may need to just walk away from this relationship. You're not in this mindset like, oh, I don't want to let go because this feels so good. I don't want you to adopt that mindset. I want you to be objective and really willing to let go. And I'm sure if you had an abusive relationship before, you know how we had such magical thinking that things were going to change and it was going to get better, but it only gets worse. And so really approach it in a cautionary way. Red flags in early dating can be tricky to identify, especially following a prior abusive relationship, because no two people are alike and no two abusive relationships are alike either. So it's possible a certain behavior is a red flag, while at the same time you have a difficult time recognizing it because it's different from what you experienced in your last relationships. So we really need to be healed and really know our bodies so that we can feel those feelings of like doubt or concern or anxiety or confusion. You know, if you've been gaslit, it causes you to doubt you feel confused. You have to be so in tune with those body sensations. Many people continue dating once they observe a red flag behavior to see if it happens again, or if there's a pattern or other behaviors that begin to enter in that are also concerning before they make the decision to end the relationship, or they excuse the behavior as understandable for one reason or another, giving the benefit of the doubt, which may lead to an inaccurate view of what's happening. We are not going to do that codependent thing anymore if we're going to date. We need to really be autonomous and not get murky over onto their side of the fence and say, oh, it's understandable, or I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If you see a red flag and you see, and that red flag is a harmful behavior, you're just better off cutting your losses and moving on. This is what dating is about. You get to stop it at any time. You don't have to go through a lengthy divorce. So don't get so caught up emotionally that you're not able to make that decision, and really recognize when you see something that's alarming to you. In early dating after abuse, some survivors experience a sense of hypervigilance, seeing many red flags that may not actually be red flags. That's okay. There's no shame. Give yourself a little grace as you've been through a lot, but that's a sign that you're not healed, because feeling hypervigilant is a trauma symptom. And you may want to write down the behaviors that caused you to wonder if the person is safe or not, and jot down how it made you feel, what your body is actually feeling, and what you're noticing that's triggering you. Your triggers need to be mostly resolved. I mean, we all have triggers, excuse me. We all have triggers, but if our triggers are causing us to feel hypervigilant or to react rather than respond, then we're not healed. And so notice what your body is feeling, journal what your thoughts and feelings are, and avoid that thing that we call cognitive dissonance or confusion. And cognitive dissonance is when we see a red flag or we were gaslit, and then instead of recognizing it for what it is, we say, well, maybe I didn't see that. Maybe I don't remember correctly. We take on the responsibility as though it's our fault. That is a cognitive dissonance. It's not seeing the situation accurately. So we want to view, it's our responsibility to view the signs that we are seeing, whether it's green lights or red flags. We want to see them accurately. And that means we need to be open-minded and really healed and willing to stop the relationship and move on to somebody else. A safe dating partner will respect your requests to whether it's a boundary or whether you know your triggers and you ask them not to say or do a certain thing. They're going to respect that without any problem. Now, I just want to put a qualifier in. I'm going off topic a little bit, but when you are unhealed, you will be reactionary, and you will have a tendency to say, these are my triggers, don't go there. But that's really unfair to the other person to demand that they follow your protocol. You have to work on your triggers. It's okay to say to somebody, a good person, when you raise your voice to the dogs, calling them, it reminds me of being yelled at. So can you just do it in a more calm way, or walk out and get the dogs, something like that. That is a reasonable boundary. And if they don't comply, then they're not respecting you, and they're exploiting your vulnerabilities. Now, if you are saying you don't talk to, like controlling the way they talk to you, in like micromanaging the way they interact with you, then that is work that you are projecting onto them that you need to be doing for yourself. Being reactive as a trauma victim and hypervigilant is normal, but it's not an excuse to demand certain behaviors from your partner. It's an explanation to why you're reacting, but you need to do the work. Okay, so that's all I want to say about your part. I'm trying to clarify this. Your part in setting boundaries when you still have trauma. It's important to do the work so that we're not making the other person walk on eggshells, but still setting good boundaries. I hope that makes sense. You always have the choice to slow down a relationship. This can be a really good way to, instead of being that rush of infatuation and emotions and moving forward quickly, you just take things slowly. You go to dinner, you go to lunches, you sit face to face with this person and really get to know them, have a lot of conversations, rather than speeding forward into like being together every minute of every day and so forth. A safe dating partner is going to understand that, and a healthy person is not going to be in a rush. Usually it's the abusive types that are trying to speed the relationship forward before you find out who they really are. So I want to emphasize that you get to decide if you see this person again. Always trust yourself and your gut. And as victims, we've lost touch with our gut intuition. We got kind of numbed out from being abused and being confused, and that cognitive dissonance I talked about, and being gaslit. You start to not trust your gut. So it's really important to be healed enough that you really know what your values and your expectations and your boundaries are, so that you have a strong intuition. Your gut is good. Listening to your body and listening to your inner voice is really important. You can trust it. And I don't want you to not listen to it. I want you to really listen to it. Stay true to yourself, know your boundaries and what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept. Don't gaslight yourself or encourage yourself to overlook behaviors that don't sit well with you. And don't allow yourself to be gaslit by your new dating partner. I know I've mentioned this and I'm repeating it, but it's so important because oftentimes it's that subtle form of gaslighting that an abuser will use first to kind of start the process of minimizing your value. So listen to your gut. Okay, there are many red flags, and I'm just going to cover some of them, and you can expand on them, but this will give you an idea. So saying I love you too soon. A healthy person is not going to be in a rush. They're going to be sizing you up like you're sizing them up. They're going to take their time to really get to know you and determine if you are a compatible person for them. If you're a good person, if you share the same values and interests, and just you don't have to only share the same interests, but that your values are compatible. They're going to take their time. And somebody who races forward, that is a red flag. Spending an excessive amount of time together early on is a red flag. It's it's not normal to just give up your life, give up your friends, and just spend all this time together with one person. You want to maintain your autonomy, and you want to see that that person has a healthy sense of autonomy themselves. Now, on the opposite side, if that person is not checking in with you or asking how you're doing when you're not seeing each other that day, if they're just ignoring you or ghosting you, or obviously that's a huge red flag, and I would just terminate that immediately. But another red flag is receiving excessive text messages, calls, or using excuses to check up on you too much, wanting to know what you're doing, where you are. Those are red flags of a controlling person. Or if they show signs of possessiveness or jealousy. At first, a little jealousy can seem flattering, but really, you want to really look at that closely. If it's a pattern, I would exit immediately, because the jealous and possessive types are the ones that very often get quite violent. And so it's not flattering unless it's just in small doses and lighthearted, not serious jealousy. I mean, unless you have made the decision that you're exclusive and somebody breaches that might reveal itself as a higher level of jealousy or disappointment or anger even. But that general possessiveness or jealousy that shows up in a pattern is a red flag. Any efforts to control your time or limit your free time with others in your life is a huge red flag. So we don't want someone who is trying to disparage your friends, point out their flaws so that you don't see them, or point out flaws in your family members, or try to make you feel guilty for wanting to spend time with your friends and with your family. Those are red flags. Constant compliments and affection is a red flag, that you're being love bombed. So that's, an occasional affirmation early on is one thing, but when you see that their focus is pursuing you in a way of by complimenting you and giving you affection, that is a red flag. And it feels good to be complimented, and affection for most of us feels good too. But so you have to be aware that is something that should take time to get to that place. So just know that is a form of love bombing. Moving too quickly emotionally, physically, or spiritually is a red flag. Again, you need to be given space and time to get to know each other, and not somebody who is rushing in, and whether it's spiritually, it's okay to have deep conversations, but when it starts feeling like they're having expectations of physical attention or spiritual demands that you believe what they believe, or emotionally being, like I mentioned, complimentary and affectionate. If it's too quick, if it's too much too soon, see it as what it is. It is a red flag. Sending you gifts that are too generous for early in the relationship is a red flag. Often abusers will try to, they're so focused on image management. They want to look good. So they do all these things to make you see them in a positive light, to mask what's truly underneath. And basically, love bombing you with excessive displays of both affection, attention, and subtle or overt controlling behaviors. I want you to really listen to if someone is trying to control you in any way, especially early in the relationship or really at any time, it's never okay. And so I would just make sure that you recognize what controlling behavior feels like. Some people are not overt controlling, they're covert. And so you really need to be aware of the ways that controlling behaviors play out. And if you join our 4-week training cohort, you'll learn more about that and you'll be able to see more clearly. And there's other workshops that we have that go into the covert behaviors more deeply. A new relationship that feels intoxicating is a strong warning sign and a reason to pause. A healthy dating partner will take the time to get to know you slowly, like I've said more than once, but I really want to emphasize this. There won't be a rushed agenda. Any relationship that's intoxicating or too good to be true usually is too good to be true. It's also an early warning sign that this relationship may become abusive. This is what they do. It's that love bombing. Another red flag is joking at your expense. Oftentimes abusers use joking early on in a relationship. So let me just break that down because we all like to laugh. That's fun, but it takes real intelligence and wit to make a joke that's funny for everyone to enjoy. Any joke that is made at the expense of another person or a type of person or a group of people is not a joke. It's a put down. So they're revealing that they're willing to put you down or that they're prejudiced about groups of people and so forth. And those are signs that they are narcissistic and possibly abusive. So it's a put down, even if they say they're joking. And joking at another person's expense is often made out of insecurity or jealousy, and it's never okay. And disparaging jokes are a warning sign that your dating partner views himself in a hierarchical position, which is a sign. I just mentioned narcissism, but that view that they are better so they can put other people down is a serious red flag to be aware of. And if they say, oh, you're too sensitive, or I didn't mean, it wasn't my intention to make you feel that way, it's still a red flag. Even if they're reverse blaming you and saying you're too sensitive, that's another red flag. And if they say, I'm sorry, it wasn't my intention. Well, what was your intention? I'd like to know. I'd really like to know, if you make a joke at someone's expense, what is your intention? It's a good question to ask. So going back to jealousy, jealousy is another red flag that can also stem from insecurity, fear, or anxiety. A person who lacks confidence often becomes clingy, or a jealous person. And sure, we've all experienced feelings of jealousy at one time or another. But if someone is jealous in a manner that equates to them controlling you or being too needy, that's not okay. And it's a warning sign to leave. It can look like them not wanting you to hang on to photos of you or with your male friends, or they don't want to hear about all the fun you had, or they're jealous when you go and hang out with your girlfriends to have a good time. This red flag gives good reason to pause or stop the dating relationship, as it can quickly turn into highly controlling behavior and a dangerous situation, like I already mentioned. And that's why I'm mentioning it again, because of the danger that's attached to it. And if you ignore the jealousy, it's going to likely turn into put downs, talking bad about you and your loved ones, overpowering you, and starting to really control you, even though they were flattering you at first. Someone who puts you down or makes fun of you or your appearance, your intelligence, your friends, your past choices, or your future goals in any capacity is not somebody worth dating, and they don't deserve your time. And if they say they're just giving their opinion that they're entitled to, yes, they are, but they're not entitled to impose those thoughts onto you or to act as though their thoughts are better than yours or their choices are better than yours. So that's time to say so long. This leads to another important red flag. If your friends don't like the person you're dating, or if they have concerns about your new dating relationship, pay attention to them. don't ignore them. And this may be your family members can see things that we can't. That's very common, and it's helpful to listen to people around us who love us. I'm not saying that you have to make a final decision based on theirs. They may not be accurate, but if they're seeing signs, I would really say, tell me more about that. I wouldn't shut down the conversation. I would explore it further and really listen to what they have to say. And I just mentioned enjoying conversations with your friendships, and I want to make this point before I move on. If your dating partner is not able or willing to communicate with you authentically, with reciprocity, and communicate with your friends in a healthy and respectful way, then that demonstrates that they don't have respect and empathy for you in the conversation or for your friends. And that is a serious red flag. They should approach conflicts with a sense of curiosity and eagerness to understand your point of view and respect your perspective and feelings, even if they disagree with you. It's okay to disagree, but they should still be curious and say, tell me more about that. I want to understand where you're coming from, rather than just defensively shutting you down or raising their voice to overpower you or any of those signs. You don't want someone who's just going to cut you off. You want someone who's really interested in hearing what you have to say. That interest, that curiosity is a sense that that's a sign for you. It's a green flag, actually, that they're willing to engage in authentic conversations where they're willing to assimilate what you have to say and feel with what they're saying and feeling, and not that they want to block you from that. You want this authenticity, and you want them to have the skills to navigate through a conflict without shutting you down. That you want them to be able to navigate conflicts by having a healthy and calm discussion and moving through to a solution, resolving issues, not something that's left open-ended, or they give you the silent treatment because they don't like what you said. You don't want, if conflicts end in that way, that is a red flag that they are not capable of navigating conflicts, which abusers aren't. They are not capable of navigating through to a solution or resolution. So take that as a huge red flag, because it's a big one. Other red flags in dating include things like someone who drinks excessively or uses drugs, or who threatens violence, maybe not to you, but you overhear the person threaten violence to somebody else, or they might talk and say, I just want to kick that person's butt, or, they just have violent language. I would pay close attention to that. If they break things, I would exit immediately. If they're cruel to children or animals, exit immediately. Pressures or forces you to have sex, even after you've already crossed that line and you're intimate, they need to respect your boundaries and not pressure you, or that is a huge red flag. Or blames you for their problems or for their conversational reactions. If you wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have said this. That is a red flag. That's a sign of them not taking responsibility for their own behavior. And that's what abusers do. They avoid responsibility. They avoid accountability. They would rather put that responsibility, all the responsibility, on the victim. The number one thing I can say with certainty to you about early dating and recognizing red flags is to trust your gut. I want you to get so in touch with your gut that you really feel you can trust it. As I mentioned earlier, you'll be able to trust your own perspective once you've done the work to love yourself and carry a high value of your self-worth. There's a lot of things out there about red flags in relationships. So I hope that you'll explore that, whether it's on the internet or through other organizations like ours that digs deep into this topic, learn all that you can about red flags, because they're, like I said, no two situations are alike. But now I'm going to move into green lights in early dating, indicators to you that it's safe to keep going if you want to. And I'm not only going to share the green lights to look for in a dating partner or relationship, but also green lights within yourself that indicate to you that you are good to keep going if you choose to. Okay, so let's start with you. As you date again, I want to encourage you to remind yourself of who you are, what you value, and all the things you like and enjoy. I remember when I was very young, I was 19, and I was getting a divorce from my first husband. I was so confused. I didn't know what my values were. And so for me, and I'm not saying this is right for everyone, but for me, I started reading my Bible and reading the newspaper just to get caught up on current events, and so that I could form opinions about things, learning about things that I was so detached from in the chaos. That was just one thing, but I want you to get really in touch with what you value and the things that you like and the things you enjoy. Experiencing abuse in a relationship is a way of slowly removing you from the relationship. Many survivors lose a strong sense of self. And when you're dating, you want to be sure to maintain your personhood, your identity, and don't just come in and adopt their identity. That would be really codependent, where you let them kind of take over and you start spending all your time with that person's friends and their interests. And, it's fun to explore new friends and new interests, but you want to balance that out with what you enjoy and your friends and so forth. Maintain that personhood and know that you have the responsibility to be your best advocate. One thing you can do is write down a list of all the things that you enjoy. For example, what are some of your favorite meals, places to eat for lunch and dinner? Or do you like to dance? Do you like country, ballroom, or otherwise? Do you enjoy going to the movies? What kind of movies do you like to watch? Take time to think about what you like to do and what you enjoy, and then assert yourself so that the relationship has balance to it. You may also want to take time to consider things that make you feel seen and heard. Write them down in a journal you can refer back to if needed, and be sure you're maintaining self-respect in dating. What are your values? What do you care about? Integrity, for example. What are your values about when somebody makes a promise? Do they need to keep it? How flexible are you? Just write down everything you can think of in terms of your values and what you deem important. And it's okay to hold on to those things. And by identifying them, you will be able to, your gut will be more in tune with your head, and you'll be able to recognize your intuitive thoughts and feelings. A big important thing to consider and establish for yourself is your boundaries. This can be challenging for survivors of abuse whose boundaries have been violated repeatedly, and it can be difficult to distinguish a really good person from a toxic person who's masking as a really good person. Your radar may be off because you haven't been respected for so long. So take time to consider boundaries that keep you emotionally and physically safe in a relationship, and write them down to refer back to as needed. We all have different preferences, and we have different triggers, and we have different needs and wants and reasonable expectations. And so it's important to journal those things down so that you can really identify what's important to you, to get in touch with your feelings, and then to be able to speak them to the other person, what your boundaries actually are. And keep checking in with yourself. Your no or not yet needs to be respected. Writing it down helps you stay true to yourself, and it's a good reminder to not lose yourself in the relationship. you get to be an equal partner of a relationship. And that includes being equally respected and equally contributing to the emotional and the physical and the activities that you're participating in. It may be helpful to have a trusted friend, family member, or therapist who you can bounce things off of to keep clear about thoughts and feelings that may be confusing or reactions that make you feel uncomfortable. I would highly encourage you to see a therapist who understands abuse while you're dating, so that you can talk about situations that come up. This made me feel uncomfortable. Why do you think that is? Is this a red flag? Someone to bounce it off of can be really helpful. If you are in an early dating relationship and you're self-aware, listening to your gut, and you'd like to continue on, then go ahead and keep going. You can trust yourself to notice if anything is going to be harmful or dangerous. This is, if you've done the healing work that you need to, you're gonna be much more in tune with your thoughts and your feelings, and that makes you more capable of dating objectively. Questions you can ask yourself to gauge if you're doing well are you upholding your boundaries, or are you too afraid to set them? Are you too afraid to speak them because you fear the person's going to leave? That's a sign that you're not ready to be dating. You're not strong enough. Do you respond with healthy consequences when they do not respect you? For example, if you ask them not to call you past a certain hour and they're not respecting your boundary, do you continue to take their calls, or do you turn off your phone? Setting a boundary requires that you are also implementing consequences when they don't respect you. Are you maintaining your friendships? Are you spending quality time with your family and friends? Do you keep your commitments to yourself, such as your workout class, your weekly coffee date with your friend? Are you caring well for your mind and body, whether it's through journaling or exercise classes, taking long baths, or getting massages? Are you still maintaining those things? Are you being kind to yourself and reminding yourself that your body and mind belong to you and they are to be loved and respected? Are you able to regulate your thoughts and emotions, or are you dysregulated? If you're really dysregulated, it's time to stop and do some more healing work. If you're able to regulate your thoughts and emotions and not react, then that's a sign that you're ready to date and you're in a safe, if you're dating, that the relationship is safer. If you're dysregulated, they're doing things, maybe covert, that you aren't identifying, that are dysregulating you. And so, which will happen to someone who isn't healed, because they won't recognize them. Someone who's fully healed is going to see them, those red flags, for what they are. And so listen to your body and be willing to stop, to go back into your healing journey, or to just determine whether you're going to move forward. Are you slowing down the relationship when you need to, or taking the pressure off yourself to maintain the relationship, even when you experience doubt? Listen to yourself. Are you recognizing when you're overthinking? And do you adjust by extending yourself compassion and patience? If you're overthinking, it's possible, it's likely that you are being covertly abused and they're causing you to work through issues over and over again because you didn't have clarity when it first happened. That's what covert abuse does. It gaslights you in the moment and you start to doubt yourself. I mean, and there's many more forms of covert abuse than gaslighting, but they all tend to manifest in a way where you overthink, you're working stuff out, maybe even a week after the incident occurred, you're still working it out to try to gain clarity. If you're doing that, that's a sign that you're not in a safe relationship. So listen to yourself, give yourself compassion, and be patient. If you're not doing well in any of these areas that I mentioned, or if you are ignoring any red flag and sweeping it under the rug, that indicates it's time to take a pause and ask yourself, why are you doing that? Why? What's going on inside? It can be hard to get to the bottom of it on your own. So This is where I encourage you again to lean on a therapist or a really healthy friend that won't judge you, but will talk it through with you. So how can you know that both you and your partner are healthy and experiencing a dating relationship with green lights that indicate it's okay to keep going? First, the relationship feels comfortable for you. It should be easy. It shouldn't be difficult. The pace, the conversations, the amount of time spent, it's balanced, and you feel balanced, and you feel balanced in your conversations. They understand your quirkiness, you understand theirs, and there's this easiness about it. It should not be difficult. It should be something that you enjoy. You enjoy dating this person. You trust your new dating partner as being honest with you, valuing you in your relationship, and you value them the same. There's an ease to your relationship that you don't carry this anxiety, this angst that they're not being truthful, or maybe they're maintaining a close relationship with a prior girlfriend or something. That should give you anxiety. And listen, you don't want, those things should not be present. You should be anxiety free for the most part. And with somebody who wouldn't want you to experience anxiety. You honor each other's independence. You enjoy separate friendships. I know I've said that. You are caring, and there's kindness, and you experience empathy. You experience their respect. It's mutual respect. It's reciprocity. You are seeing and experiencing those things. One way you can know if there are green lights to continue on is also in how the other person handles conflict. And I know I've mentioned this, but I want to emphasize it. A green light for moving forward would be someone who listens to you. They really want to hear you. There's mutual respect and mutual understanding in conflict. Even if you don't agree, you can mutually respect each other and say, I respect your opinion. I just don't share your political viewpoints on that, topic or whatever the point is, whether it's an internal conflict or something about something externally, that you're able to feel that your points of views are listened to. So I want to quickly note that if you're having a hard time deciding if you or your new dating partner are handling conflict in a healthy way, have a look at our terms and definitions on our resource page on our website. It lists 30-something covert behaviors. It lists the name of what to call them and then the definition of what they are. And that can be so helpful for you. And also our maze of confusion. It will demonstrate that if any of these behaviors are being employed against you or towards you, you'll be able to recognize them and see that this is a huge red flag. So our terms and definitions, so many victims and survivors have said, oh my gosh, what a light bulb moment that was to read the terms and definitions. It gives you language to behaviors that you may not notice. It increases your emotional IQ. So I really encourage you to tap into that resource. Good character can be realized very early on and tested through consistency over time. So more green lights include a partner who I can't say it enough, respects your boundaries, whether they are physical boundaries, emotional, sexual, financial. Even if they see and experience things differently, they honor your requests when you place a reasonable boundary. They know how to express their feelings and validate your feelings. And if they don't, they try. They are working on communicating. And you are working on communicating without oversharing or putting up walls to guard yourself. You share appropriately as you feel comfortable and safe doing so. The goal is to create a relationship that is safe for both people. They have open and honest communication. Your partner does not overpower you during conflicts or discussions. They are open and authentic. For example, they can talk about their upbringing and their dreams for the future. And you can talk about yours without, and you can talk about your fears without them being exploited. So in other words, what often happens in an abusive relationship is that we talk about our vulnerabilities, and then we find out later that your partner uses your vulnerabilities against you in an argument, or maybe they even embarrass you publicly by sharing it with friends. That is typically what a covert abuser will do. And so that's vulnerabilities are meant to be safeguarded and really respected and to be treated with care. That's the mutual feeling that you should have in the relationship. And the person you're dating should show you that you have a place in their life by appropriately checking in and making you feel appreciated and thought of, not someone that's distant or avoidant. So many abusers, they're not rageaholics. They don't overtly express their thoughts. They pull away and they make you wonder, like, are they gone? Why haven't I heard from them in a day or two? Or they play games with you that way, or they punish you by pulling away. So that's obviously something that you want to really listen to. You want someone who cares about you feeling safe and really is a good communicator. Good character can be seen in all things I've mentioned here: being honest, caring, showing respect, and taking responsibility. And good character will be visible from early dating. And as I said, it will remain consistent over time. Look for integrity and congruence in their words and actions. So for example, if they owe you an apology for something they did that was maybe inappropriate or whatever it is, their facial expressions, their body language is congruent with their words. So they're not speaking, they're not just saying, I'm sorry. They're showing you that they really are sorry. You want to look for congruence, that their words and actions line up together. When you notice a lack of integrity, you don't internally or externally minimize the experience. You see that lack of integrity for what it is and recognize it as a real character problem. Abusers are people with characterological problems, with distorted characterological behaviors, and you don't want any part of that. So recognize it for what it is. You deserve to have a happy and fulfilling relationship, and it is possible. There are so many people out there in the world for us to meet and encounter that are really good and healthy for us. And so I want you to find the healthy ones and stay away from those who are harmful. Because if you overlook these things early on in the relationship, you're going to find yourself much more deeply invested in that relationship. And it's so much harder to leave at that point than it is early on. So I want you to be very willing to just say, no, I'm moving on, and just lower the boom and move on. Don't have any hesitancy in doing so. As I wrap up, I want to invite you to stay connected to us, if you aren't already, by joining our mailing list, where you'll receive our blogs, our newsletter, and updates about our training courses. And I hope that you will join our next training cohort, because it's so impactful. It's a 4-week session where there's about 30 minutes of reading per week and a 2-hour live session with me where we just cover very specific topics. It's so enriching and it will really enlighten you. So please head over to our website and sign up today to continue along this journey. And so that's all I have for today. And now I'd love to have your questions if you have any.
We do have some, Annette. This has been so amazing. I just want to share this feedback with you because I know sometimes it can be hard to see the whole chat. So I wanted to tell you that somebody had to hop off, but said this was a wonderful message and very helpful. Thank you for making these sessions available.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we have a couple of people just really thankful for the message today. And we have right now, we have about 4 questions. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Oh, we just had someone else say thank you so much for your insight and information. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
So here we go. First question is, and this person has 2. So the first question is, my last ex really isolated me from friends and family. I didn't even realize this was abusive. I'm 38 and with no close friends besides my sisters now. How do I start making new friends?
Oh, I love that. I was in your situation. Um, it wasn't that my husband isolated me, but I isolated myself. I was so confused and stressed. And I knew something was terribly wrong with my relationship, even though I couldn't figure out what it was, because my husband was a covert abuser. And so I was so confused. I isolated myself. I pulled away and didn't return. I just kind of put away my friendships. And so what I found that was really helpful for me was getting involved in a support group um, where you have other like-minded people who've gone through what you've gone through, and you can really feel like you're part of a community, and you can support each other. I recommend Natalie Hoffman's The Flying Free support group. There's also Leslie Bernick's. Leslie Bernick has a support group. And there's a few others out there. If you write to us, I can send them to you. There's one I just learned about that Patrick Doyle runs. It's really good too. So something like that. But that has its limitations because you're immersed in the language of abuse. And maybe you want to get away from that and just look at life and through new eyes. So I highly recommend getting involved in things like an exercise class or a sport. I remember for me, I just started taking tennis lessons. I had never taken tennis lessons, so I started doing that. I started taking pickleball lessons, and now I love pickleball, and I have so many new friends. And I have my old friendships too, but I just felt like I needed a fresh start. And so I've had so many people tell me that by going to an exercise class regularly, they see the same faces each time, and they start building friendships. They start going out to have an iced tea after the workout class or whatever. And so you just have to extend yourself. You have to stretch yourself, be willing to be uncomfortable and try something new. It's a little bit scary to go take a class with people, and you wonder if they're better than you and how are you going to fit in and all of that. But just push through those feelings and stretch yourself. You have to stretch yourself if you're going to meet new people. It just like if you're going to date someone, you need to stretch yourself and be willing to either do online dating or tell your friends that you're, whatever it is. It takes this emotional stretching, and we should always be stretching ourselves, really. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you will meet some new friends. I'm excited for you.
I love that question. And I love how you answered that, Annette. It's the perfect question for you because you can so relate and you have so many ideas and so much hope. And yeah, just love that. The second question is I am dating someone now who told me a story about how he threw an item in a fight with his ex wife. I haven't seen anything like this in our 6-month relationship. Should I leave?
Oh boy. Well, I guess I would have to say it just depends on other signs. I mean, I slapped my husband across the face once. So if my husband and I were able to reconcile after a 3-year separation because he went through intensive therapy while we were separated, and so did I, and we were able to reconcile. That's not very common, but the signs would be of an ex, like if I were dating and they heard that I slapped him across the face, they might say she's crazy. So if it's just one incident and you don't have other, I would probably just file that and be aware of it. And I would maybe explore why he threw something, what was behind that, what caused that kind of reaction. And if you can identify with it and you can see how triggering it would have been, maybe I would give it a pass. But if you don't relate to it at all and you just think it's like out of controlling him, frustrated that he couldn't control his wife, that would be a time to leave. But I would also look at the overall relationship, and really, if you feel like you're healed enough to be really in tune, like look at our terms and definitions on our website and see if you notice any other behaviors that are playing out that you're not aware of yet. Educate yourself, be really informed, be on guard. That is definitely a red flag. But that's, I would look at the whole picture.
So good, Annette. So helpful. Another thing too is just watching for consistency over a long period of time, because you have time to continue dating and keep information gathering. And like Annette said, just keep an eye on it. But definitely something to keep in mind.
But be proactive too, and look at our terms and definitions if you haven't already. Increase your emotional IQ so that you're really in tune with what harmful behaviors look like, so that if anything else is playing out, you can really say, okay, now I see a pattern, I'm out.
Yeah, so good. Absolutely. We do have a couple more questions here. So I know we're over time and this is recorded. So if you're like, oh no, I need to go, but I really want to hear this recording will be sent to you. So if you have to hop, totally okay. But we do like to stay on to answer all these questions. So here we are. Okay, the next question is, I have certainly done the work. I am helping other survivors. There are often people who ask me out and I never accept. I feel I don't want to. My dilemma or doubt is whether I am really not interested, or if this aversion is on an unconscious level. I have been divorced for years, though only the last few years not in contact. It's really a comment, but it's an interesting one because I'm sure other people here can relate.
Yeah, that could be something worth exploring with a therapist, to really, when it has to do with potentially unconscious thoughts, you need to take some time to unpack that. It could just be that you like your life right now. You're in a good place, but you might just stretch yourself and accept a date if it's with someone that you're attracted to, and see how it goes. See what you think about it. And if it feels imposing, you're just not ready yet, and that's okay. And we don't all need to date, and we don't all need to have a partner, especially if you have children and your focus is on them, or if you have a full life with friends and a lot of interests. It's really a personal preference. But if there's something that you are worried about being unconscious, I would invest the time and money to sit with someone to unpack that with you. But get a qualified therapist who really understands abuse or narcissism. And you can discern a qualified therapist by asking them if they've had any classes or continuing education units on the topic of emotional abuse, narcissism, or domestic violence, because that's the kind of therapist that you need to tap into. And it's okay to tell a therapist. You call them up and say, I'm shopping for a therapist. I'm wondering if you have, I'm divorced this many years, and I'm looking for someone who has taken classes, continuing education unit classes on these topics. Can you tell me about that? And just ask them. And if they say no, then move on and call the next person until you find someone. And it's not easy, because most therapists are not trained at all on emotional abuse. But it's important that you find someone that can identify to the types of things that when we're in an abusive relationship, we tend to be codependent. And so that can recognize what your tendencies may be and what your subconscious experiences may be, and to help you unpack that. Yeah, it's just worth the time and money to look at that. But I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think unless you yeah, I think I would go to a therapist and I would explore that. I'd want to know, what is my aversion?
Absolutely. This leads kind of into the next comment. This is a comment, so this is not a question, but I want to share it because I think it's probably a thought a lot of people have had. So it says, anxiety from trauma took over my life. As I get to know myself finally, I witness the anxiety reducing. Yet another trauma seems to pop up in its place. Just when I think I'm at the bottom of the anxiety barrel, another one pops up. Each one has a different source too. So it is evidence of how much trauma has been in my life. Is there an end with a question mark? I'm starting to wonder, yet I'm determined to fully heal no matter what the answer is. Annette, I do think it is common that even in dating, like dating is another level of healing. So even when you're totally healed and then you start dating, you are going to experience more things that you haven't dealt with now that you're in a relationship with someone else again. So can you
Absolutely.
speak to that a little bit, because it is still common to have those anxieties. Like you're not going to not like feel anything, right?
Yeah. I don't know if the types of traumas that you're experiencing are like really heavy duty trauma, which that often happens for people. They've been through something really traumatic, then they're in a car accident, then their child is bullied at school. All these things are really heavy traumatic experiences. So I don't want to minimize if you're having just some bad luck, some bad experiences, but the more healed you are, whether it's minimal anxiety or something really traumatic, the more healed you are, the better your coping mechanisms will be. And you really want to work on that. And if you haven't worked on that with a therapist, it's a worthwhile effort. Working on your coping skills. You have to be able to translate your prior trauma into new reactions. You need to be able to get to a place where when you're triggered, you are no longer gaslit, self-doubting, or overreacting and attacking the person. You want to be balanced. You want to view things accurately. And you can only do that if you're healed and you've worked through that trauma, that you can really identify, oh yeah, there's that trigger again that comes from this and that. And usually our trauma really originally stems from attachment disruptions that we had with our primary caregivers when we were children. It started there. So it's really helpful to go back and look at, if you don't know about attachment theory, read a book on attachment theory. It's very eye-opening, and it will really help you understand yourself. And it's worth doing that kind of work to help eliminate your anxiety, because anxiety often is habitual in people who had attachment disruptions with their primary caregiver. In other words, they never felt emotionally really close, emotionally supported, emotionally validated. And they didn't have a parent that was really helping them develop their perspectives on life and to help them to feel supported when they had an emotional experience. I know my parents I don't think they knew how to do that. They didn't know how to validate me emotionally. And so I grew up being minimized. And it's important to go back and to understand how that affects the way you attach to people by your prior attachment style with your primary caregiver. It's a worthwhile exploration that you can get out of, there's so many books on attachment and the internet. I would just read one to make yourself aware, and then focus on your coping mechanisms. I hate that you're feeling anxiety, and I hate that you've had recurring trauma. And I don't have the context to how serious the trauma was, but it does come to an end the more healed you are, because it doesn't affect you the same way. It's partially how these things affect us, how resilient we are. And so I want you to get to a place of really strong resiliency. So it probably requires a little background work on your part.
So good. So good. It made me think of
Mm.
post-traumatic growth and just ways that people can grow and become more resilient and become
Yeah,
more capable of handling stress and anxiety and all of that. It's the coping. It's what you said. And
yeah.
that's so helpful. Annette, we have two questions here that are left.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to go ahead. One is actually about restraining orders. If an abuser has stayed away from the victim for the whole restraining order time frame, can the victim trust the abuser won't come back later to try to bother or further abuse the victim?
I would just go in and try to extend my restraining order. I, how much time has passed?
Let's see if they're able to answer. And I'm going to check if they're still, yeah, this
If
person,
they're still here?
they are. It says almost 2 years.
Well, I mean, statistically, restraining orders are really critical the first 9 months for safety reasons. And then there's like another threshold after a year, the danger level decreases. After 2 years, I think that's a pretty good amount of time that I don't know the severity of what you experienced, how violent the person was. But I would just trust your gut. If they were really violent, or you felt like your life was in danger, or your children's safety, or that they would sabotage you in some way, I would just maintain that restraining order if you could, if you can, if a judge will allow it. And otherwise, I think generally speaking, you're in a safer distance of time, that they're not going to be so emotionally drawn to you and interested and retaliating anymore. They've moved on to someone else. So it's, but it just depends on the person. So you have to really look over the history of the relationship. How violent were they? How reactive were they? What are their own coping? How their inability to cope with you leaving them? You can see their other coping mechanisms and judge for yourself the level of safety that you need to keep in place for yourself. It's not just a one answer, a cookie cutter answer that fits every situation.
Yes, so good. And I'm really glad you said that, because they did respond with not wanting to extend it because they don't want to see him in court again. So I would probably seek advice from somebody who knows.
You know, usually for restraining orders, they put the victim in a separate room so they don't have to see the person in court. You can request that through a court DV advocate, that you be put in a room not just adjacent to the courtroom. So if the judge needs to ask you a question, somebody can come in and portray that, relay that to you, or it's on a monitor, but they usually keep victims separate from perpetrators. So I would do a little digging and see about that.
Yes, for sure. A DV advocate would be amazing resource
Mhm.
for an issue like this. Just to keep you safe and make you feel comfortable too, since it's a question that you're considering.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. And this is about dating. Back to this is an interesting question, because Annette, I think again, it's going to be very relatable. Is there a way of finding dates that is more prone to meeting abusers? It says, as someone who was married for over a decade, the idea of finding a quality date seems impossible. I have amazing friends, but they're all married and have kids, and online dating seems like a shit show to me. So, this is this person's experience. I think it's a very common experience coming off of abuse. Do you want to speak to that? Is it impossible, or is it possible to find someone out there who is still dateable?
Yeah, I know it's seemingly impossible at times, but I took a class with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. They're amazing authors and psychologists, and they talked about dating for a while and said, if you want to find your person, you have to extend yourself. You have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there to friends, acquaintances, online dating. You need to, like, power dates where you just meet for coffee, meet for coffee, meet for coffee. It's work. It takes effort. It's not like, magically your phone's going to ring and Mr. Right is on the other end of the line, or that someone's going to magically come knocking on your door. I mean, those stories do happen, but few and far between. It usually takes a lot of effort on your part to really be willing to extend yourself, go in social environments like, I don't know if you're involved at a church, but singles night at church, or just social environments where you're meeting new people. There's a lot of groups that you can connect with through Facebook and so forth, where you might take a hiking excursion together and you meet new people, or you do a 5K together and people want to train together. And so they join in a group, and you extend yourself in those sorts of ways where you're meeting new people, is what I'm trying to say. But it takes work. Yeah, but there is hope.
Yes, yes. So on that note, Annette, that is the last question of
All right. Well, for those of you who stayed on for 30 more minutes, thank you. It was really great to have you today, and I hope you'll join us again. And take real good care of yourself. That's what comes to my mind. I just want you to take really good care of yourself, listen to your body, read the books that I mentioned, and I just hope you live an abundant and blessed life. We'll talk to you soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.